Up next, Crux. Please welcome James Turnbull.
So thank you all for having me here today. My name's James Turnbull. I'm a market and transactions principal at Crux. Really the reason I'm here today is because at Crux, we share a goal with the rest of you to power the next wave of American industrial growth. So with that in mind, I wanted to spend a few minutes today talking through who Crux are, what we do, some of our insights from the tax credit market, and some examples of how we're doing just that. Who is Crux? We are the leading capital markets platform focused on the clean economy. We launched in 2023 off the back of the Inflation Reduction Act, setting out to change the way that renewable projects raised capital. As many would be familiar with, the Inflation Reduction Act made tax credits transferable, which gave renewable developers a much simpler way to monetize the tax incentives in their projects. However, for manufacturers and for critical minerals producers, the IRA created this new multi-billion-dollar asset class overnight in terms of tax credits. It was an absolute game changer. So Crux, off the back of that, built a marketplace where manufacturers and critical minerals producers can transfer their tax credits, they can structure financing, and they can close loans. We've built a tremendous network of developers, tax credit buyers, lenders, and investors. We've invested heavily in an execution platform and market-leading IP. And among other things, we've built the best data set on transferable tax credits and the market in general. To be frank, we've been very successful at this. We've listed billions of dollars in tax credits on our platform. We have collected billions of dollars in bids. We've closed over 70 deals. Among those are over a dozen advanced manufacturing and critical minerals deals, which, as far as we know, is more than anyone else in this market. In a nutshell, we've gotten really good at doing these deals, not just because we've done big ones, but because we've done a lot of them, and we see a very large portion of the market, which allows us to bring a bird's eye view to every transaction that we participate in. So with that said, I'd like to talk you through a few highlights of what we're seeing in market as of the second half of 2025. First of all, general market sentiment. I would steer you away from reading every word on these slides. I'm sure we'll share these afterwards. But I think the main dynamic that we would note in the first half was a bit of policy overhang from the Big Beautiful Bill. This was a headwind. It wasn't a showstopper. There is still plenty of appetite for transferable tax credits in market, even noting significant policy uncertainty. That said, within that appetite for transferable tax credits, there is plenty more appetite, I would say, for production tax credits, such as those earned by manufacturers and minerals producers. The market views those as less risky and is willing to pay a premium for them. Anecdotally, we've heard from many corporate taxpayers that were on pause pending the reconciliation process, that the passage of the bill, even though not as good as the Inflation Reduction Act was for these manufacturers, gives them the certainty they need, and so they are looking to move forward into this market and proceed with tax credit purchases. Next, I want to talk about pricing. So production tax credits, which again includes the manufacturing tax credits, are consistently in demand. Pricing is consistently in the 93 cents on the dollar range, but larger tranches of credits are pretty consistently getting into the mid-90s. We view this as high pricing, and we expect it to pick up in the second half as more demand enters the market. In all periods, demand is outstripping supply. These blue bars behind me show the multiples of demand to supply ratio. In a nutshell, the market really, really likes production tax credits, and any manufacturers looking to bring capital into their business are sitting on a very liquid asset to do just that. I would just add as a final note on pricing, yes, the price that manufacturers receive is less than $1 per tax credit, which they could get through direct pay. What we pretty consistently hear from this sector is that waiting 18 months from when the first products roll off the line to when direct pay would be received is not worth the time value of money that they could otherwise get from selling these credits in the current period. For an early stage business trying to ramp up manufacturing operations or a struggling business in the minerals sector, this can be incredibly powerful. Now finally, just one more market intelligence point that I'll make. Advanced manufacturing PTCs, again, consistently in demand. I think there is a perception possibly in the market that tax credit buyers want investment-grade solar and wind credits from, investment-grade developers. In truth, you could not be more wrong. Advanced manufacturing credits, since this market launched, have consistently made up a meaningful portion of the volume. In the second half of last year, these dark blue bars represent advanced manufacturing, and almost half of the market activity we saw was on manufacturing credits. Year on year, that share of credits taken up by the manufacturers has doubled year on year. So again, take away from this that the market loves your credits. So finally, just want to kind of bring what we do to life with a couple of case studies. The first one I'll talk through is a producer of critical minerals. Like so many others in this space, this producer was feeling the pinch of a challenging business environment. They were really depending on these tax credits to support their operating margins for their business. And like many others, they couldn't wait for direct pay to come through. They had to keep the lights on, and selling their credits for 90-something cents was a lot more attractive than waiting 18 months for 100 cents. One notable aspect of this transaction is that because Crux is highly engaged in the policy space, we were anticipating the final IRS guidance that significantly increased the amount of credits available. We found them a very sophisticated buyer and supported diligence pre-regulations, which meant that as soon as the IRS provided final guidance, we were able to close quickly, efficiently, and have a large amount of capital flowing back into this business. For another example, and I will say that not everyone is sitting on a pool of credits that they have to sell. This second example that I'll take you through is a manufacturer who we helped raise debt before a single product rolled off the assembly lines. A solar component manufacturer we were working with was desperately trying to complete the capital stack for what would become their flagship production facility. The key struggle that they were having was that lenders did not understand the value of the production tax credits. And when they were sizing the debt, they left money on the table. They had reached out to all sorts of lenders over an unsuccessful process that took them months. And within a couple of weeks, Crux introduced them to a specialized lender who deeply understood these tax credits and was willing to bridge into their construction period. As a result, we were able to support diligence, documentation, and ultimately help them close a deal that helped them fund construction of their flagship facility. So I think I will leave it there. I hope the examples that I gave in the market intelligence I provided was insightful or helpful. Crux is committed to supercharging the clean economy through access to the capital markets. There are a lot of different ways that we can play, and there are a few of us here through tomorrow. We would love to have a conversation with you and explore how we can support your business. Thank you very much.